I'm not afraid of me anymore.
Huh?
It's not a fear I have. I'm not afraid of what the future might hold. It's not a fear I have. I'm excited for it. I
Excited again. Yeah.
don't even know what it looks like. I
Yeah.
don't.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower podcast. I am so happy that you are here today. And if you are doing well, then that's great. And if you aren't, then I'm very excited that you're here today. Steve Knapp, am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are. You got it.
All right, Steve. So it took us a couple tries to get this working, but here we are. We finally did it. First of all, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent. I'm actually a little bit stressed. I'm
Oh,
gonna go
yeah?
with that. I'll be honest. I could say I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely fine. No, I'm a little bit stressed. I went back to school.
Okay. For
So
what?
this is my very first. When I went back to school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mhm.
So I
I
decided I
still
would
don't know.
just, yeah, no, I think this is just part of the journey now. But I decided I was gonna give business a try, with
Mhm.
either go the business route with a minor in social work or social work with a minor in business, which is like a really interesting combination. And then as I began taking my courses this semester, I found myself enjoying accounting,
Cool.
which when I say that, most people look at me
Well,
cross-eyed, like, what's wrong
well,
with you?
I'd be one of those most people because when I see numbers, I just get like this number dyslexic and I just get stressed out.
And so I've found myself right now going into my exam, I've got 97% in accounting.
Awesome. That's great.
And even though it's complicated and frustrating, I find myself enjoying the monotony of it.
Yeah,
And
I can see
this
that.
one of the skills that I have found in my sobriety that I'm actually really good at. Like, I can sit and focus on the numbers and just, like, you give me the most boring task to do,
Hmm.
and I will just trudge my way through it and plod along and piddle away, and it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't. I created a sober playlist that is on our website.
Yeah. Steve, what's a sober playlist, if I may ask?
Okay, so what I did for this was I threw out a question to in a bunch of sober groups, and I said, like, what is a song that touched you in your sobriety? What is
Hmm.
something, your sobriety, your recovery, like, what songs do you guys love
Hmm.
that you attach your heart to? And so I did it twice within 2 months, and the response that I got is the playlist that's generated from everyone else.
Cool. So it was like a user-friendly form that you threw it out there, and then they gave you the songs that came back. So I gotta check that out. That sounds awesome. Okay.
So
So
the sober playlist, and it's got all the songs, the artists, the links to the YouTube videos, you name it,
awesome. And then what's the name of the website again?
through
Is
the
it
glassrecovery.com.
Recovery?
Yep.
Breatheglassrecovery.com.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Julie wrote a blog
Yeah.
about that sober playlist.
Yeah. That's
So it's
awesome.
on there. Yeah.
Yeah. I
It's
was
really cool.
Yeah, so Julie was on the show the other night. She was great. She was fantastic. I feel like a lot of people are in Julie's shoes, and a lot of them just didn't have the courage to kind of break through those tough 10 years from her, I think it was from her 30s to 40 was a really tough 10 years for her. And yeah, she was terrific when telling her story. So I was excited to meet the second, the partner in
Y-
the podcast, Steve over here. So Steve, I'm just curious, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and what made you all of a sudden become Mr. Podcast Man that I'm looking at?
All right. Well, started out, I was 39. Right now I'm 43. So I'm 3 years, 8 months and change sober. Started out, I was in charge of half the operation of a corn wet milling facility. And what that means is we took corn and turned it into sugar. And I was basically the refinery manager. I was in charge of the maintenance, the scheduling the maintenance, figuring those things out, making sure that we made production numbers, and the operators and figuring out all of that stuff. So basically, when you look at it, half of the operators and half of the whole process I was responsible for. So, and I started out just being one of those guys, and I worked my way up to more and more responsibility. I was good at my job. Anyways, that was old Steve. That was the Steve that through basically his entire 30s, his drinking got worse and worse and worse, along with the responsibility that continued to increase.
Yeah.
So I was one of those people that would call myself a high functioning drinker.
Me too.
And that was an excellent way for me to justify continuing my drinking. Just because I was able to continue plodding along and being successful didn't mean that my problem was getting a lot worse.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I always thought that I could handle my alcohol, and I always made room for it just enough that it wouldn't, even though it completely interfered with work. I just wasn't doing a great job when I was teaching and everything. I noticed a pattern every 3 years or so. I would have to jump from school to school because I think I would just not do enough work to get the rehired position. So, it's sad when I look back for those last 10 years and I look back at my life, I'm like, man, that was like a really good prime chunk of my life that I kind of just threw away for alcohol. So let's talk about you, Steve. When did you first discover alcohol?
When I first discovered alcohol, when I was really young, I was epileptic. So I ended up taking medication. I never really discovered alcohol until I started working, and I was like 21-ish, and I started going out to the bars and started doing the things. And what is the dog doing?
I was hearing the dog, and I'm like, oh no, is that my dog? Because our puppy is sitting right in front of me on a blanket right now. I'm like, is she crying?
No, that's purely mine.
It's a dog cast, it's a dog.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
She's a rescue just like me.
Yeah. So
reclamation project. Yep.
Yeah, so was mine. We just got her from one of those rescue. It's called Canine Interstate. A little plug for them. They were awesome. We went to go find the dog, and then we actually looked at the dog that we wanted, and we went to go get that dog. And then next thing I know, this other dog came up to me, and it was kind of like the energy was just right. That's the dog. So, but yeah, she's been a blessing. She's a blessing and a curse. No, I'm just kidding. She's the best. She's a great dog that I'm getting a little too attached to. Every time I leave the house now, I feel like I'm losing a friend and I need to run back, and that's probably not a very healthy sign.
Well, at least you'll figure out how to manage it soon enough.
Yeah. I grew up with dogs, so I do know how the interaction and how to live with them. But yeah, they're chaotic,
dogs too.
especially when they're puppies. They're just nuts.
Oh yeah, I love dogs too. I grew up with a dog my entire life, and I spent the last two years, anyways, without one.
Oh, it's harder.
It's like
who's missing?
It is. It feels like you're missing a little buddy for sure. It is. So anyways.
So you jumped. So you started drinking at legal age. Congratulations. Kudos to you.
In Canada, legal age is 18.
True.
And so I remember when I hit my legal age, the one thing that I did do was I ran to the casino and I played the slot machines at the casino because I was allowed to do that. But at that point in time, I didn't drink. I didn't drink through all of college. And I started drinking just a little bit after that when I graduated. And it didn't take me long to drink really heavily. Like the binge drink, you go to parties and just get hammered and then drink a whole bunch of Red Bulls and all of that stuff because that's what was popular at the time.
Yeah. Same here. So you said you were a high functioning drinker. I said that about myself as well, but I clearly was in denial. I was not. Thought I was, but I wasn't. But yeah. So when did it get all of a sudden it started having detrimental effects on your life?
That's the that high functioning alcoholic, high functioning drinker lie that we tell ourselves, because I wasn't any better. I was getting worse and worse and worse, but I would have little moments. So I called them green light moments because I remember my first year working and I was like, okay, I haven't taken any medication for a year. I've been out partying and stuff like that. And I had avoided drinking alcohol because mixing it with my I was deathly afraid of having another seizure because I had 3 grand mal seizures when I was 15 years old. So I had that fear, the fear of that incident that stopped me from ever exploring drugs or anything else like that.
Yeah.
So
What was epileptic? Is that,
yeah, I had childhood epilepsy.
yeah.
Oh, and then but then after those 3 grand mal seizures, I hadn't had a seizure again. That was the end of it. I mean, I took my medication regularly and blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't until I got to the ripe old age of 21 where I started working and I started losing that schedule, and I would miss some pills and it wouldn't affect me. And then I'd go out drinking and then it wouldn't affect me. So I made an appointment with my doctor. And when I made the appointment with my doctor, the one thing I didn't tell him was I was out drinking. But I did say that I haven't taken any medication in like 4 months and I haven't had a problem. What should I do? And my doctor was like, that's great. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. Boom.
There you go. He gave you a free pass.
My brain lit right up. And I was like, I can go out drinking and partying all I want now. Like
That's what I would have thought.
it gave me the permission to not worry about it. And so I did. That's exactly what I did, was just not worry about it. So then I just continued on. And then I would plan my drinking. I would plan like my drunk nights because I worked shift work. The night before my last night shift, I would just get hammered. And I started making my own beer and doing all that. And the next green light moment was, because I used to never drink, and I wouldn't drink and drive either, but that slowly would happen. But I used to never drink in my vehicle until one day we had a hockey tournament. And it was a work hockey tournament. And we were all on a bus, a big van, and the guys cracked some beers open in the back seat, and I joined in. And it was the first time I ever had a beer in a vehicle. And I was like, wow, this was fun. Completely broke the seal. It was now okay for me to drink in a vehicle.
Yeah. That's never a good sign.
No, but that's, my brain was like, all right, a new place. So drinking in my truck became my new thing because nobody would ever bother me. I never had to explain myself. I never had any outside influence. The only thing I had to worry about was when I was driving past intersections, I had to make sure that my drink, and I didn't drink beer in the truck. I drank whiskey.
Wow. Okay.
Whiskey, rum, vodka, like that's what happened. And where that started is after I had that permission, as I got a bottle of booze as a Christmas gift, and it was in the truck and I never took it out. And then so one day on my way into work, Hera the dog, I'm hungover. I'll just take a swig, take the edge off. That started the whole drinking in my truck. Like throwing bottles of booze out the window in the ditch on the way home, because now I can't bring them home. I can't put them in the recycle. That's ridiculous. There's like 3 empty bottles in my vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that. I was drinking. So I was hiding my booze in my car. That's what I would do. I would like hide it under the seats.
I did that too.
At the at the worst of it, the last 6 years up into the transplant, I would get like super anxious when I knew I didn't have any more alcohol in the car, because that was like my last place of that's my friend in there. I need to get to it as fast as I can. And I know he's always going to be in there because I was always hiding it. I would like put it into water bottles so it would be loose enough but hard enough so it could like slide under the seat and like stick and not like rattle around or anything. I was like, the things that I did when it came to hiding my alcohol abuse was just so sad and
ingenious
too, I guess.
It is
until you get caught. I mean, that's a terrible thing too, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely it is.
When you all of a sudden it's all of a sudden your wife, my wife, she just started finding it, and that was a hard thing to explain, because how you can't explain that, right? Like, why would you need vodka in a water bottle underneath your the back passenger side seat or whatever?
How did you manage to explain that one away?
There really isn't any. I mean, I used to be able to get away with it when I would hide it in like Gatorade bottles and like say it was from like a party and we were just saving it or something. I mean, that worked like once, I think, with her, but she's so smart. She's saw right through my bullshit, right away. And yeah, that was a very long process of trying to figure that all out, because that was just a nightmare. The hiding, hate that part. That was like such a terrible part of my alcoholism was the hiding it everywhere and then getting caught, like, feeling, because the fight would go, it would happen, and then there would be lingering, that lingering effect for the rest of the week or two. It was
Oh my
terrible.
God, the
Guilt. Ugh.
the guilt and the like, how am I going to repair this relationship and then continue my relationship with alcohol at the same time?
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think at that point in time, you're
So
like,
much for
fuck. You're like, fuck, okay, I got caught. And then you're like, all right, she's pissed. I really need a drink now.
yes, yes. Like the worse the fight got, or the worse the uncomfortableness got, I would be like, oh, just I'd make this feeling go away.
The anxiety of it all was horrible.
Yeah. This is living in hell. That's what it felt like. I feel like I was living in constant fear. That's what it felt like. Constant fear of just me. I was scared of my own self because I never knew what stupid thing I was going to do next, and what person I would let down because of this drinking. And I just it got so out of control. I could not stop drinking. It just every single morning I just would, God, the puking and the bile puking because I couldn't eat because I was so
God,
sick, and it was just like the shakes and the
don't. I wasn't far. I
like
was so
PTSD.
like
About it.
the last year of my drinking, I would drink every morning. Like I would wake up, and as soon as I got out to my truck, I would start drinking on my drive to work. I had like a 35-minute drive to work. So I
Mm-hmm.
had a nice, peaceful time. But my last year of drinking, myself and my wife were sleeping in separate beds. I was sleeping in the basement. She was sleeping upstairs. And this is all during COVID too. But the last year of my drinking, I woke up every morning at like between 4:30 and 5
Mm-hmm.
o'clock, and I would
Same.
yak,
Yep.
and it was like this nasty
Yeah,
dry
it hurt,
heave.
right? It hurt.
Yeah.
It physically hurt. Like my body was like, stop throwing up. But I'm like, I can't. I have to get the poison out so I can put more poison back in and it actually sits.
And I would drink water.
Yeah.
So I would have something to put in the toilet as opposed to just the dry heave, because the dry heave was just so painful
Huh?
that felt like the only thing I could give myself to relieve it.
Yeah.
And so I did that for like the last year. The reason and how I quit had nothing to do with me turning around to start and being like, wow, I've had enough of putting myself through this pain.
Mm-hmm.
It just became a normal part of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me
And
too.
like I look back now and I look at like the slow degradation of my moral compass.
Mm.
Little bits at a time, like slowly chip away at my own identity, let alone everything else that I valued.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that so true? I mean, your morals, your character, your convictions, they all get kind of warped when you're, especially after long-term alcohol use, like mine did. Like everything started to just get fuzzy. Everything. My whole life was just turned upside down from where I expected myself to be. And at 30, I think when I got the transplant, I was 36, and all the way up until then, I just thought this is ever going to get better, and I honestly did not. Like towards the end, and I actually haven't even talked about this that much on even when I just do my videos, it's just me looking at the camera. I At the very end, the last like 6 months, I was drinking to kill myself. That's how bad it got, because I knew that my liver was already failing from the 2001 COVID hit, and then next thing I know, I'm just gonna kill myself. I don't want to be alive anymore. I'm gonna drink myself to death. It all happened very fast. That realization, I'm just okay. I'm going to kill myself now from drinking is so messed up.
It's incredible how even when you're staring at death, you just can't seem to let go of the bitch that's trying to kill you.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? You just can't seem to.
My body wouldn't even. I couldn't do anything without it. That's how it
Mhm.
got. Like I literally couldn't breathe or walk or do anything without having alcohol in my body, and in the morning, first thing every single day. Like I would remember I'd freak out if it would be like 9 o'clock at night and I knew that I was running low and I wouldn't have that morning bottle ready.
Mhm.
I would become like this crazy person. I would like run away and like pretend like I had to go get gas or something just to.
I made up stuff all the time. I made up stuff all the time. We're running low on propane. I'm gonna go and do this. I'd hide drinks out in the garage, mainly beer, so I didn't smell like booze. But I'd hide beer out in the garage, and I would make excuses to go out into the garage and I'll put the recycle away and I'll do this and I'll go and tinker and whatever it is. And all it was just bullshit. So I could go and
I couldn't even, when I would, 'cause that morning shakes, like I would sometimes have a beer or something, but I wouldn't get the enough of the feeling of
no, I needed the
and
burn.
I needed it to burn. That's true. Like I needed it to be as hard and strong as possible. And it was like the cheapest, crappiest whiskey. I mean, vodka too, like the Smirnoff or whatever cheap big bottles are. Do they sell hard booze in stores like gas stations and stuff in Canada, or is it just beer?
No, they don't even sell beer in gas stations in Canada.
No, they don't.
No. There was the odd grocery store or convenience store that was also a licensed liquor store. But other than that, you had to go to, because in Ontario, they're government owned. The beer store is government owned and the liquor store is government owned, and it's all controlled through the Liquor Control Board. You only had a certain amount of stores. Like here in the US, I'm in Grand Junction. You can go to convenience stores and gas stations. And like, I feel like that's the most ridiculous, dumbest
It's
thing.
so irresponsible when you think about it. I loved it back when I was like in my 20s. I'm like, this is, I get to go in, especially when you go to New Hampshire, and it's literally in every gas station. You just go get whatever you want for booze, like wine or beer, not hard booze, but wine or beer. But in Massachusetts, there's so many liquor stores in proximity to how many people are living in that area. And I live in a pretty, only 15 minutes outside Boston. So it was everywhere. I knew every liquor store that surrounded me by heart, and I knew the people that worked there. I knew everything about liquor, like everything about booze. Yeah. Crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got an hour lunch. What did I do on my lunch? Hopped in my truck, I always made sure that I had liquor on me. And if I was running low, I would go to one of the 3 different stores that was within driving distance, and I would go there, pick up a bottle or two, and I never had too much on me. Like I made lots of trips. Go there, pick up a bottle or two, then I was good. I would drink on the way there and I would drink it on the way back. And then I would drink on my way back home from work and do it rinse, wash, repeat over and over again every day of the damn week.
Did you get into any trouble? I mean, like legal trouble?
So part of this is I never really lost anything. I mean, I damaged relationships. I spent a lot of money. But I never lost what you would think would be valuable. So I never lost my relationship. I never got divorced. I never lost my kids. I didn't lose my license. I didn't lose my job. I was still maintaining all of these things. Poorly. Yeah. Very poorly. I was a shitty father, a shitty husband, a shitty employee. Yeah. Like I wasn't good at anything.
But you were maintaining well enough to not kick
to not or lose any of it.
Yeah.
I mean, she knew I had a problem because she hid booze on me. But we never, that's a difficult conversation to have. So it never really happened. What happened was one day she decided to take a look at my credit card bill, which we had separate credit cards. So it was really easy to hide everything, separate bank accounts, you name it. And it was really easy to hide anything. And she decided to open up my credit card bill, and there was like $850 worth of trips, money spent on the credit card to the beer store or the liquor store.
It happened to me too. Yeah, she knew that I was saying I wasn't drinking, but I clearly was. I mean, she would see me, she saw how I looked. So my wife, she was, she's super smart. So obviously that's what she did too. And yeah, that was not great because we were struggling to pay the rent. And here I am using money that we don't have on booze and completely, ruining the fabric of our relationship, second by second because of it. Just a nightmare. So when did all of a sudden you were living a high functioning AUD kind of life? When did it all of a sudden, did it ever come to a breaking point?
There was no ever breaking point. Like if you ask me, did I hit my rock bottom and then walk out of it from there? No, I had rock bottoms that were before that with me crying like a puddle, like limp puddle in my living room saying, basically inside I'm screaming, I need this to stop, but I couldn't even get the words out. Basically the emotional baggage that I was carrying around of all the stuff that I was avoiding would come out in this big burst of me just crying, and I would blame my work and blame the stress of my job over it. If I was going to say, because that happened at least 2 or 3 times where like I couldn't even lift myself up off the floor. It hurt that bad. Everything just hurt, like a screaming inside of my head. Those were my rock.
Like emotionally hurt kind of thing, like physically and then emotionally.
Yeah. But I had no way or words on how to actually express what was going on because it was just way too much. I just wanted it to end.
So what'd you do? How did you fix it?
I woke up the next morning and I went and did the same stupid shit that I did before because I never wanted to quit. What happened was she found the credit card bill and then she put me between my rock and a hard spot.
Yeah. So she kind of hammered it home for you. You either get sober or else,
She didn't even say that.
No.
She just literally, she gave me a way out. She was like, because I had a buddy who had a drinking problem. She didn't want, I don't think she wanted to really even have to admit it, but I had a buddy who had a drinking problem. And she was like, are you buying booze for? And I sat there for a minute and I contemplated whether I was going to throw my buddy under the bus or not.
Right.
And I thought about all of the lies that I was going to have to tell and how I was going to figure out justifying that to him because I knew that was going to come back and haunt me.
Yeah, right. That'd be bad karma.
And at that moment, I decided that the lie was going to be too big to carry. So I told her the truth.
For you.
I turned around to her and I said, no, that's all me. Because I didn't want to throw my buddy under the bus.
Yeah. How did your wife react?
I don't think she was super surprised. Like, it made sense.
Yeah.
At the same time, you get the emotional responses, you get the where have you been drinking, and the truth started coming out.
Yeah.
It started coming out. I drank on my way into work. I drank my way home. I drank here. Do you drink when you pick the girls up from school? I drink and drive. I've been picking them up drunk for X amount of time, blah, 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 blah. Like, all of this shit was hard to say.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, that one especially, that's a really tough one to admit.
None of those moments were ever moments that made me stop. The lie was too big to carry. That's the only way I can try and describe it. And then, so the next day, that was a Sunday night. The next day, I called in sick to work because I was hungover as hell. I had 3 bottles of booze in my truck that night, and I told her they were there, and she said, go dump them out. Okay. I went and dumped them out. I made sure to drink as much of those 3 bottles as I could on the way down the drain in the sink. Those were my last drinks.
Really? Wow. I remember my wife making me do that, dumping the bottles out and getting infuriated. I was obviously on board because I was caught. She caught me and now it's time to dump it. And I remember just watching the liquor go down the sink and being like so upset with me, with the fact that that's my buddy that you're just throwing away. I need it. Like I need it. That's how I felt. It was, what a memory. The watching that feeling. I got that feeling and just came back just thinking about it because I haven't thought about that in a long time until you just mentioned it. But yeah, oh my God, the things that we do when you're so addicted to alcohol, it's scary, man. It really is. So that was your last drink, the sneaking a couple sips while you're pouring out
I drank
goodbye, just giving him a kiss goodbye.
Basically, and I was like, I can't believe these are going to be my last drinks. I can't believe that this is how this is going to go down.
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember I can't believe, okay, this is my last drink. I pulled the last bottle out, opened it up, and drank as much of it as I possibly could, and walked in the house and dumped it down the drain. And I can't. This is how this is going to happen.
It's almost poetic in a way to watch the alcohol swirl down the drain and out of your life. It's almost like.
And that was it. So the next day I woke up hungover as hell, and without her telling me what I needed to do, I just needed to get help because I agreed to go and get help. I called up HR at work and I told them that I had a problem with alcohol. Called up my parents. I called up my parents. I told them I had a problem with alcohol.
You're a unique dude, Steve. I feel like you don't hear that very often. I mean, calling into work and letting them know hey, HR, just so you know, I'm struggling with alcohol. That's very brave of you. I
I,
don't think I would have the stones to do that.
I, and everyone that I spoke to in the first week, because I didn't know, everyone that I spoke to in the first week, I said, I have a problem and I need your support, but I don't know what that's going to look like. Because I had no fucking clue. I
Yeah.
just knew that I needed to quit. So I
But
said that to HR. I
yeah.
said that to,
Can you say it like that, like emotionally like that?
yeah, oh yeah, like
Yeah, you
I
gotta.
cried with every phone call, even when I talked to my parents, and they were super surprised. And then I invited my wife's parents over for dinner. It was a Wednesday because I was going to talk to them in person,
Mm.
and I did. I said to both of them, I got a problem with alcohol, and I need your support, and I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah. That's a
And I
conversation.
was filled with so much shame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't believe I let myself get to this
Yeah.
and be such a disappointment, because fuck me, I felt like a disappointment.
Yep. I'm with you on that. My last drink it was the day before my father's birthday. Um, uh, I actually snuck out of the house because I was so in withdrawal from alcohol. I knew I wouldn't last because I knew I wasn't going to be leaving the house because the party was the next day, and I had no time because my wife was with me the entire weekend, so it wasn't any time to run away. Because at that point, she knew it was so bad that every time I left the house, she would be, thinking like, "Where is he?" Even though I would never go out and drink, I just would bring it back home and hide it. But yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, okay, like once she caught me again, bringing it back in, sneaking it through like a water bottle or whatever. And I came back in and I was already pretty buzzed because I was drinking it in the car before I got in. And I went upstairs, did the same thing. We got in like a huge fight. And then I could tell like my parents can hear this because we were at my folks' home. And I walked down the stairs and I turned to my father. He's like, what's going on? And I just, same thing, broke down, tears. Like I've never cried so hard. And my father was a big drinker. So, I was like, Dad, I have no control over this. I am completely lost. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, I don't know what to do. And I just broke down and he cried and I cried. And he said, we're going to beat this thing. I just remember the feeling because he just passed away. So this is emotional. I just remember him being so gracious and not judgy about about the whole thing, because he himself was struggling in his whole life, I'm sure, with it. And maybe he even, I don't know, but maybe he even felt a little, I think he might have felt that maybe, he might have a small part in this whole thing. And that was the hardest thing ever. That was the hardest thing, admitting it to him and my mother that I had a problem with drinking. And it was supposed to be this beautiful, glorious birthday, of his that we were all going to be celebrating together as a family. And next thing I know, I missed the whole party because I was in detox. I was detoxing. And then when I went in, that's when they said that you don't have any more time on this earth unless you get a liver transplant. That's how sick I was. So it was a nightmare. That was a nightmare. I can I'm thinking back on that phone call that you made to work, and how did that go? Like what was like the thing that they said?
Nothing
Yeah, what
really.
can
I
they
think
say? I guess.
nothing really. Like, Char just said, do what you need to do for you. And I mean, I showed up to work the next day. I took one day off. The first week was brutal. I was just full of brain fog,
Yeah.
but I did the best I could with what I had. My very first, this will be emotional. It always is. So on the Monday night, March 14th, my sobriety date, I that morning I wrote an email to AA because that's all I knew that existed. And I said it was my time to put the bottle down. I still have the email. And so I went to my very first AA meeting that night. It was on Zoom because the pandemic. And it was this guy's 45th sober anniversary. He had been sober for 45 years. His name is Barry.
Shout
And
out Barry.
he wouldn't have a problem with me talking about it. His name is Barry, and I saw people smile. I saw people laugh and joke. It was like 40 some odd people there celebrating this man and 45 years. I was like, what? I don't remember much about that meeting, but I remember seeing a man that was 45 years sober and saying, fuck, it's possible. Like,
Yeah.
I can do this. Like, it didn't feel like too much. It just gave me a hell of a lot of hope. Like, I saw this guy that suffered what I was suffering. And he found a way. So I stayed in AA. I made a plan for myself. I was like, okay, how was I going to do this? So I attended 4 AA Zoom meetings a week in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't interfere with work. And it was like right after I put my kids to bed or right along bedtime. So we had that managed. And I started going to a bunch of Zoom meetings, and I started listening, and I started trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And as much as I think the program is great, I always had this internal gut feeling like I didn't feel like I belonged.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think a lot
and
of people feel that way when they go to AA. I felt that way. I just felt like I didn't belong there. I was coming from a place of complete. I didn't have that objective perspective of looking at the whole situation with a clear mind. And like I would go to AA drunk. That's so like that deep down, I knew I had a problem, and I was going to these meetings. And yeah, that story you told about Barry, I had a few of those, but weirdly enough, they would last just a few days, and then that feeling would disappear. That memory of what I felt, that hearing this tough old guy. I mean, in the meetings I was going to was around just around Boston too. So like some of these guys were so tough and old and awesome, and they're talking about their old drinking stories and like who they are now. And I was like, I don't want to lose like the cool parts. Like that sucks. But at the same time, I was like looking at these guys. I'm like look how tough that, like he was, some of these guys were talking about like their 20s and 30s and how crazy it was. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing any of that, but I still love alcohol and I still love how it makes me feel, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. But just the fact that they could, and I saw these awesome, old tough dudes like telling their tales and with such like love and admiration for sobriety and for the AA meetings themselves and the community aspect of it. And yeah, it was really powerful stuff. I just wish I was a little more open-minded and a little more just ready to hear those stories in a authentic, genuine way.
Yeah. It's a pain in the butt when you're stubborn as hell, dude. It just is. And I honestly think that because I stood in front of everything so soon.
Yeah.
Like I didn't give.
Yeah, you didn't give yourself you just kind of, okay, like now everyone's going to know.
Yeah. Like I didn't give myself an out. My out was to stop. There was no other way. How was I going to quit?
Yeah.
And so like even though it was something that I loved at the beginning because there was other people like me. Right. And I did put my all into it for the time that I spent there, but I found another community. This is where I met Julie, and it was through the I Am Sober app. And there was a group of people that were on that app that were hosting recovery meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided one Saturday afternoon to hop on their noon meeting, and I was sitting in my kitchen making, I don't know, a sandwich or something like that. And I was about 4 months sober. And I was like, this is just a whole bunch of people talking about life and sharing their life experiences and figuring out how to be sober. And some of them were AA, and some of them were, the Luckiest Club, and some of everybody was kind of trying to discover their own way and their own path. But it was mostly people not in any sort of program. It was just the program of life, figuring out your own shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that I connected with.
Yeah, that you can buy into, right?
That I connected with. I didn't. My problem, honestly, was like I don't like reciting stuff. I don't like the regurgitation. I don't like the prayer. That stuff I don't connect with. Where is this going to be the authentic part of me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Instead of taking somebody else's words and making them my own, without being able to put words to it at the time, I wanted to put my own words to it. I wanted to put my own definition to it. I wanted to say, like, what does this feeling mean to me? What do these words mean to me? Right? And not trying to like dissect what somebody else wrote and what does it mean. I wanted to like, how does my life attribute to this, and what do I need to do to better myself? So it wasn't too long after I started swapping AA meetings for these meetings. I still went to meetings 4 times a week. And it was through those meetings, this is the birth of the podcast. It was through those meetings where I started actually learning more about myself, because instead of me just sharing and me just listening to other people, I got interaction. When I had a problem, I got to sit in a breakout room with like 4 people or 5 people and share my problem and then get feedback.
Yeah.
And get like a shared experience based on, this is what I did with what happened to me, or Jesus Christ, that's never happened to me before. I've got some more questions. So then you get this not weird, cool, different perspective on life. And not only is it just people that were local to me when I was there, there was nobody local. So it was people across the US and the UK. So I got life experience, cultural experience mixed in with that, because everybody came from some different place.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part of the AA meetings online, or the sober community online, right?
Online.
I mean, you just get to meet so many different people. I mean, I would say half my guests have been from either Ireland, UK, whatever. It's really, it's funny how that worked out like that. But yeah, it is cool to get their perspective on it, because that culture for sure is super, they're struggling big time over there, just like we're struggling here. So it's a universal issue.
Yeah,
not just the States or Canada.
So I called it my emotional backpack. And I never really started releasing a bunch of my emotional backpack until I started getting involved with that community.
Yeah.
And figuring out what was holding me back, and understanding that I needed to be a lot more emotionally healthy person. And that was going to be the difference between where I am today and who I want to be later on.
Yeah.
And that's when honesty became way more of a priority. And that's when boundaries became way more of a priority. And that's where figuring out how relationships were supposed to work and what was healthy and what wasn't became a priority.
Boundaries in what sense?
I was a yes man.
Me too.
It was hard for me to say no. And I believed that if I was nice, that feeling you get, nice guys finish last.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me, right? That's my life. It's my life.
It's mine too.
Always trying to please. It's one of my biggest faults. Yeah.
I felt like I finished last all the fucking time, and it was time for that to stop. Like it was a race that I was going to continue to show up in, not in a way that I was going to make any progress. There's a big difference between being nice and being kind.
100%. I've learned that very quickly with a clear mind. Always just always be kind. Everyone should always be kind, right? But when you're people pleasing, like I was a huge component of the foundations, honestly, of my insecurities and why I was the way I was, and how I was using alcohol to bring about the true essence of who I was, because there was no prefrontal cortex filter anymore. It was all gone, right? Because of the alcohol, which is like was my favorite part of it. The drinking was because it made me me, and I was scared to actually show me genuinely.
Which is vulnerable as hell.
It's tough. And it's tough, especially like where I grew up, man. People don't talk about their feelings. Like I didn't grow up in a house where everyone, where there was lots of love, but love was shown through like food and stuff. Like that's how my mom, that's how
material things.
Yeah. Like
material
food,
things.
Like accomplishments, things like that. That's how you got love. And what I was doing, I wanted love in a genuine, like honest, real way. Right. And I was so scared to admit that the alcohol was helping that. Really wish I caught that sooner, and I sought out help at a much younger age, but I was too far gone. So once you made all these calls and you really put yourself out there, did you feel like there was a 9-pound gorilla just off your back, even though it was a very uncomfortable feeling to be so
Yes,
candid and open and honest about everything you're experiencing?
absolutely freeing and absolutely terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, like, the gorilla, the monkey off the back, because the secret's gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
You're now
don't.
that person, right? That's like, okay, I was this person. Well, in the perspective of everyone else, I was this person,
Mhm.
but now I'm Steve, this person. Yeah, I struggle with that. Even still, I struggle with that.
And so you're dropping an identity in your best friend all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was I going to do now that I didn't have my frenemy? You solved my problems, but you made everything worse.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful thing when you go sober, but you get up the next day and all your problems are still there. Everything's still there. All the things you didn't fix around the house, all the relationships you ruined, everything's still going to be there in the morning. But now
So
now you can do the work because you're clear minded now, and you're starting to get in tune with who you are on a real way, not a fake. Yeah.
so how do I change my emotional response so it's a healthy one? Like,
Right.
regardless of what the world throws at me. My goal eventually became to have a healthy emotional response to life. And that's not easy when you've got 25 years of experience having a poor one and developing a poorer one as
As
time went
time
on.
goes on, yeah.
It takes a lot of practice,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to find the right people, and they're all out there. Strangers, and I've said this on every podcast, strangers saved my life.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. And now those strangers are some of my best friends.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that works out, right?
They decided that my problems were going to be big enough and small enough all at the same time for them to listen without judgment.
Yeah. God. So walk me through this now. So once you started putting in the work and you said I'm done and you told everyone, which is such a cool thing that you did. I don't think I've ever heard someone tell me that a story like that, how they just open themselves up. I have a problem and I'm telling my work, I'm telling my parents, I'm telling, that's some scary stuff that you did. That's a courageous move on your end.
Work, parents, in-laws, my boss at work, my sister, and my sister-in-law, all within the first week.
Yeah. Were you looked at any differently? Were they super? Yeah, they were super. Yeah.
I never had, I mean, I was anxious as hell. I was scared as hell of what was going to happen to me at work. Nothing happened to me at work, but I was scared as hell of it. I was scared. The one thing that terrified me the most was what was like how the rumor mill at work was going to, like what people were going to say behind my back, because at that point I cared about what other people thought so much that that my thoughts didn't matter.
Mm.
But at the same time, it felt like the right thing to do, regardless of how scared of it I was. It was the beginning of my relationship with fear and understanding that fear and I have had this argument, and now I've decided that fear, we walk together.
Mm.
Like, fear is my friend. Fear tells me the thing that I need to do.
Can you be a little more? Can you give me an example of that?
If I'm afraid to have a difficult conversation with you, Will, because it's important to me, then it's a conversation that I need to have,
Gotcha. Okay. So
right?
yes. Okay.
So if I'm afraid to go and have a conversation with my boss because of the result or whatever I believe, whatever I'm imagining,
Right.
because my fear is all in my own imagination. So I decided pretty early on that me and fear, like, I'm going to look at fear and say, fuck you. If you're going to stop me from doing the thing that I know is right, we're going to be friends, and I'm going to go and do it anyways and prove you wrong.
Mm-hmm. And most of the time, when we're fearful of something, in our life, whether that be whatever your job, whatever, it's usually the consequences or the actions or the thing that happens eventually is actually not that bad. It's what we do as humans. We work it up to the worst possible destination that it could go, even though it hardly ever gets to that place.
Hardly ever gets to that
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah.
Julie calls me a bull in a china shop. I'll recognize the fear.
And then go right at it.
And then I will say, I'm scared of this. And then she'll be like, oh crap, he's just going to go and do it, which I do.
Yeah.
I just go and do it. Regardless of how terrified I am of it,
Excuse me.
it becomes a part of what I need to do because I no longer want that message.
To run.
I no longer want that belief to be something that I'm going to continue carrying with for the rest of my life. Because if I don't face it, then I acknowledge that that is a belief that I agree with.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. That's deep. Right.
And so when I look at it that way, I don't want that to be who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't want that to be who I am, what do I have to do? I have to go and prove that belief wrong.
Yeah, I think we can agree with that. I mean, starting our own podcast, starting a channel, really making ourselves public figures in this world.
Yeah.
That was some scary stuff. I was just
Terrifying.
I was terrified. I mean, even like my brothers, like friends, like, what are you doing? I actually didn't really tell many people I was going to do my channel. I just did it. Obviously besides my wife, she knew, but yeah, it was very scary to open myself up. And now I've been, I started my channel at the end of August, so I'm still very new to it all. And now people from like my high school are catching wind of it, and it's been nothing but positive. I don't know what I was so worried about. Don't know what I was so worried about because I've got nothing but very appreciative, DMs and things like that from kids I haven't talked to. And I think our high school reunion, 20-year high school reunion is coming up next Thanksgiving, so that will be interesting. But now everyone's catching wind to it that I'm going to show up to that and be this guy. I'm excited though. I'm excited for those conversations.
Well, it'll be so much fun.
I hope it rubs off on some of them because I know I think right now on a few of them that definitely need it, and I just want to help them. And that'd be great to help them see the other side of the sober journey that we're all on, the good side, the wonderful side. It's all good. It's wonderful that you found your way that way. It did the fear thing right away. That's like how you attacked it. You saw the fear and you're like, okay, I'm just going to take everything and just throw it out. And then let the chips fall as they may.
They never fall the way you think they're going to fall.
No. And usually they fall in very interesting blessing, like almost blessings. Sometimes.
Think about the story you tell yourself. The story I tell myself is a story that will keep me safe. Anytime I try and predict the future, I'm telling myself a story so I can try and keep myself out of danger. Even though the story itself could be dangerous. All it is all I'm trying to do is protect myself. From who? Myself. It's shit that I can't control.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to create a narrative that I can control. The narrative itself is what I can control. So that's why I create the narrative.
Yeah.
Like you follow that, right?
Yeah. You're creating your own reality because it's you. You're now in charge instead of being the person who would follow, listen, and listen to your own negative self-talk. Now you're becoming an advocate on your own end for you.
So screw the story.
Yeah. Screw the story that we've been telling ourselves.
Let go of the control and then take other people's reaction as information.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I can do, and this is like 3 years, 8 months sober, it's taken me a while to learn this. It's taken me a while to figure out that I don't need to take stuff near as personally as I do. It's taken me a while to get rid of my anxious attachment style because that's how I thought love was supposed to be shown. And it's taken me a while to figure out that I'm not even as important as I think I am.
Yeah, that's scary to think that, right? That we're not as important as we think we are.
But there's so much power in it.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much power in your own individuality because of that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like, it feels like every time you let go of something you can't control, that you almost become less. But when you let go of it, you become more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I give myself more energy back every time. I give myself another chance at self-reflection. I give myself another chance of figuring out, where did this emotion come from? Why is it affecting me? What do I need to do about it?
Yeah. And there's
How will I?
no way you could have ever come to this realization within who you are now as a person if you still had alcohol in your system. I
Absolutely
just don't
not.
believe that can be done. I honestly don't think like true growth happened for me until I stopped drinking completely. Never picked it up
Absolutely.
again. Yeah. That was,
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm a completely different person now. I don't know, I don't know who that person was that I was for 20 years or whatever, but I'm glad that person's no longer in this chair, in this body, because
Hmm.
I couldn't live with that person anymore. I actually was telling Julie this on when I recorded the podcast with her, that I brushed my teeth with my eyes closed for like 6, 7 years. I feel like sometimes I'm trying to make this podcast something that I don't know if I'm handling it the way that I want. And these are the kind of conversations that I like to have. Not thinking about what I'm going to say, just talking, because there's so much beneficial things that come up when you have a genuine conversation with someone like yourself and someone who's been through this process and has lived it, because it's hard to have those conversations with people who just don't understand it. Any kind of conversation like this is so helpful to so many people. So you were talking about facing fear, realizing that the fear itself is more scary than the actualization of what you will experience, right?
Yep.
So is that like kind of your credo now? That's almost like how you live your life?
Oh, very much. Very
Yeah.
much. For example, I live 1,600 miles away from where I used to call home. So I quit my job. I've gone back to school.
So this all happened in Canada.
All of this happened in Canada. I just
So this
moved.
new Steve is United States Steve.
Yeah, I just moved here in June and went back to school here on the Western Slope.
That's great. I mean, I think that's so important that you geographically changed, because I feel like sometimes that's what you need when you're restarting your life, because when you get sober, you literally are restarting your life. I mean,
Oh,
that's how I
yeah.
feel now. Like, I don't know who that person was that was so addicted to alcohol and couldn't function without it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, my wife and I, we have this new place that we absolutely love that we live in. And there's nothing that reminds me of me, here, which is
Hmm.
very important in keeping my sobriety as strong as it can be. But yeah, that's cool that you did that. So you quit your job, found a new job out in here
No
in the
job.
States.
I quit my job, traveled, then decided I was going to go back to school, moved to Grand Junction. Julie lives 45 minutes away, and I had come to visit a whole bunch of times, and I fell in love with this side of the planet.
Yeah. It's a very cool area.
I
Yeah.
love this area. So when I leave here now, it feels like I'm leaving home. This place,
This is your home now.
area, like it's literally, I can feel it in my heart. Like
Yeah,
I'm
you're always
leaving a
supposed to be there.
place that's that's I remember leaving here once, and I was like, why does this hurt so much? And I recognized that in that pain, it was because I didn't know when I was going to come back. And it was because it felt like I was leaving a place. And I've said this more than once. Like, I feel like I should have been born here. Like that's just what it feels. This place feels like like home to me. And it's not the town, it's the mountains, it's the desert, it's the feeling I get when I'm out in nature around here. It's can't really describe it, but this place feels like home.
Yeah. That's beautiful that you've found your footing, in a different area on the planet, and now you're this different version of you, which is really cool.
So my goal now is to create something here where my kids are going to want to come, because I'm a
Yeah.
father of two girls. They're back home with their mom.
Uh-huh.
But to create something here where they'll be proud of and they'll want to come and visit and all of that stuff. And for me to do that, I need to go back to school. I need to face a crap ton of fear, keep turning my life around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started.
Yeah. And that's how I feel too. I feel like the last 20 years of my life was, it's hard talking about 20 years of your life as being a waste, but that's how I feel. I feel like I just wasted so much time being someone that I didn't even want like being. I didn't like who I was. And God, it took forever for it to finally click. I mean, it took a liver transplant for it to click. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, just how brutal of a process it is to be a 2-time transplant patient and all of the things you have to, that goes along with it, the emotional distress and the physical stuff. But it's a constant reminder of where I was and where I am. And I hold that very near and dear to my heart. What do you notice now in yourself that you're probably the most appreciative of now that you are sober? And, or maybe something that you just never noticed before in you, and now that you are clear-minded and healthy, what do you think your favorite aspect of being sober is?
My willingness to try.
Yeah.
Like,
So all up until when you were drinking, you just weren't even giving it a go on most things,
I
or?
mean, I was good at what I did.
Yeah.
I tried hard, but I was trying because other people wanted me to try.
Mhm.
And that's what other people thought was going to be good for me, or if it was good for them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The other thing I absolutely love is my self-awareness, my ability to look inside and figure out how to share that and how to communicate that in a healthy way.
Mhm.
That part has brought me so far. Just
Mm.
that part alone. If there was one thing you would say, like, that I appreciated the most out of my entire sobriety is the ability to feel.
Yeah. Feel feelings, actually feel them.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
not run away
Numb
from
'em.
the ones that are bad, because there's no
Mhm.
such thing as a bad freaking emotion. It's just uncomfortable.
Mhm.
That's how I see we experience life. If you look back on your memories, most of your memories are associated with some sort of emotion. And that's
Oh,
why
yeah.
it becomes a memory. You get attached to that. Most of my 30s are gone. I don't have memories. And why? Because most of it was drunk. And when you're
Mhm.
drunk, you don't feel shit,
No.
right?
Yeah.
You don't. I have some really drunk memories that are full of emotion. But other than that, my 30s are pretty much a blank in my memory.
Yeah. That's a hard part. I'm struggling a lot with that part because my wife, I met her in 2018. When we got married in 2018, I met her in 2016. But uh, we look back at photos, and we almost it's hard to look at photos of happy moments because we were happy in that moment. Clearly, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look, the pictures are stunningly beautiful and things like that. But there's always that underlying feeling of like, okay, she's looking at this photo and I know she's feeling the same feeling that I'm having because there was probably some alcohol related in this and I wasn't 100% present, and that probably makes her really sad. Actually, I know it makes her really sad. It makes me extremely guilty and remorseful, and so many other words that I can attribute to that feeling. But sadness, I guess, would be the biggest.
Yeah.
But that's can't look at it. You can't look at it. It's good to be introspective, and it's good to reflect on those memories and be appreciative of the good ones. But at the same time, they are tainted with the shame and guilt of the alcohol. That's why it's so exciting now that she's sober with me too. So now that we live this different lifestyle, everything is like almost a pleasant memory. Not everything, but so many are because we're both completely dead sober. She never ever had a problem. She hardly drank, honestly, but it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to express our relationship. I feel like we're always working on a relationship now in a genuine way, whereas it was almost superficial before because of my alcohol abuse. Isn't that interesting?
Connection changes big time after you
Oh
get
yeah,
sober, right?
yeah.
Like, the the superficiality of it all kind of, it's a lot harder to be fake, for
Mm,
me anyways, while I'm sober, because I can feel the self-abandonment
yeah.
when I respond in a non-authentic way. And then I go back and I go, why the fuck did I do that? Right? Why did I do that? Why, like, was it so this guy who's a stranger wasn't going to judge me? So this guy who's a friend wasn't going to have this ill opinion of me? What? Wait a second. if that's what's going to happen, then do I need to question why I'm spending time with this person?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you realize that really quickly, at least I have, is, once I went sober and I still had my connections to my friends that still party it up, I noticed that the conversations that they're having with me, I feel like are a lot more, it's a lot more, it's a lot more fulfilling. There's a lot more love there and things like that. And then when I hear the other conversations going on with the people that are drinking and stuff like that, I almost feel sad because there's nothing substance to it. It's almost like a base level way of speaking to one another when you're kind of drunk.
Yeah, it's like, how's the weather?
Yeah, how's the weather? Or just talking about sports or something,
Sports,
something
yep.
meaningless, like something just whatever, not meaningless. I shouldn't say that. I
It's
love sports, but
non-consequential.
yes, non-consequential. There's no growth there. There's no enthusiasm to whatever we're talking about, like how we're talking right now. There's none of
Yeah.
that, and that's something that I hope people who are watching, listening, whatever, are can understand that that's something to look forward to. You like my conversations that I have now with everyone that I encounter are coming from a very kind, gentle perspective of clarity and the connections that I'm forming with these people like yourself here. It feels good. It feels good to connect in a genuine way. It really does. There's something there that's, I can't describe it, but it's something there that just feels good about talking to people in the most candidly honest, genuine way possible.
It's amazing. Like, I love it when I have conversations with people like you, because there's times within the conversations I get chills.
Mm.
And that's like the emotional connection. That's the way I see. That's kind of like you're like, I can relate to that. I know what you're saying. I feel that. There's the empathy part that gets you. And whenever somebody's vulnerability is like the pathway to connection.
It is. I mean, that just is a fact.
Right? So then, because I'm enamored with emotions and how we feel, and we look at, say, joy, for instance. Joy is an actually really vulnerable emotion to share. How many times that you were in a place where you're with some people where you're so happy, and then you look around and you're like, these people are there. I'm going to squash it. Right.
Mm.
And I've done that around people, because if I show joy, that vulnerability in past experience has come back to hurt me. Doing it because I don't want that person to see the vulnerability. I had this happen to me not too long ago, which was, and question it, when I was in Disney with my kids. I felt so much joy at one point that I was about to cry.
I get that a lot too.
Right?
No, I get
And
those a lot.
and
Happy cries.
right.
Yeah.
And because of the people I was with, and I should have just done it because there was nothing really to fear. But the people I was with at that time, I squashed it. I stopped myself from crying. I stopped myself from feeling the joy because of some story I told myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
That was the moment where I was like, Jesus Christ, showing joy is actually vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
Because I put it away.
Yeah. Yeah. You hit it. I've always been an emotional guy.
Me too.
My whole life, a very, and I didn't really grow up in a very, it wasn't really allowed to be, like that kind of person. It was allowed, but it wasn't looked at in the way that I feel should look at that. I feel like it should be celebrated. It should be, it should be celebrated. It should be. And now with a clear mind and this journey I'm on, I look forward to meeting people, and I look forward to the connections that I'm building because they're coming from a authentic, genuine place. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you are still going to have like very, you're going to run into the person that's really difficult to stay in that zone, that enthusiasm of being alive zone. Cause there's a lot of people, trying to bring you back to, because misery loves company. They want
It
you
does.
on their side. Oh, and that's something I just realized too. Like, when you get sober in your thriving, like when I'm now, I feel like I'm kind of hitting a good rhythm with like the podcast and everything. I don't think people don't like to see other people happy, because it's like, hey, like, where are you going? You can't get happy like without me, like that's like how it kind of feels, right? It's like, no, like, I don't want you getting happy because you are
Your
supposed to be
success
with
makes
me.
other people uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not fun. And it's like, because I'm sober, it's like you're holding up a mirror. I said this many times before, but it's like holding up a mirror to someone else's face when they can see yours, and like how much better you look, like physically, and how much better emotionally stable you are, and like, all those things that we take for granted. But yeah, I have encountered that a few times, I thinking like they're going to give me a positive response, or like, Leon, look at this thing I'm creating, like, check it out, like maybe it could help, whatever. They don't want to hear anything like that. And that's okay. Everyone's journey is completely different and individualized on their own path. But it's exciting when someone does. How have you, now that you're in a different location and you're doing your own podcast, and I love the format of your podcast too. I love how it's like a round table. That's really cool. I think you get a lot more different opinions and perspectives when you do that. So I'm excited to jump on yours too. But what are you excited about now? Like, what are you excited about now that you're this person?
What am
Big
I?
question.
That's an awesome question. I've been sober for almost 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Almost. Just under 100 days. I have a friend who's 100 days more sober than me, like to the day, and she just hit 4 years. So that's how I know I'm just under 100 days. And if I look back and see how far I've come, how far I've grown as a person in that 3 years and 8 months, and to know now, today, that I have more courage than I've ever had before, that I'm more willing to bet on myself than I ever have before. I came here in June to figure out how I was going to stay. And I gave myself 3 months to do it, and I bet on myself. And I figured it out in less than 2 weeks. What I've learned is that if I show up and try, that is literally my mantra now. Show up and try. Amazing things happen.
Yeah.
You get hoops, they get put in your way. They get put in my way to the thing that I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, it's not a setback. I get to learn something. I'm not afraid of me anymore.
Right.
It's not a fear I have. I'm not afraid of what the future might hold. It's not a fear I have. I'm excited for it.
You're excited again. Yeah.
Don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't. But I've shown up for this past semester. I'm not even a semester into school, and I have a internship set up already for the end of next semester. Did I expect any of that to happen? Absolutely not. What my future looks like, I feel like it looks bright as hell. And I don't know what that is, man. I don't.
Yeah. But you're excited about it.
I freaking love it.
Yeah.
Freaking love
it. It's a great
it.
feeling, isn't it? To wake up in the morning with a clear head. I know, look at you. It's beautiful. Waking up, I think that is my favorite part now, is the excitement of a new day. What will this day bring? Yes, it's still going to be tough things, but at least now I'm processing all of them, all the tough things, with a very open approach of showing up for myself each day, holding myself accountable, showing up for the people I love. That's a big one. Being reliable, all these things that we take for granted when we're severely in alcohol abuse. I just never was showing up for myself. I was always procrastinating. I was always putting things off to the last minute. And now, my hobby is this now. I
It's
spend
fun.
most of my time just doing this. Like, it's funny. My wife she's like, you're doing a full-time job without getting paid. I'm like, yeah, I am. And you know what? That's okay right now. It will definitely lead me in a direction of something that will be financially stable, hopefully one day. But, right now I am, I'm just excited about everything. Like, everything excites me. Like, wherever I find some kind of that feeling that gets you up in the morning and you're excited about something like that's, I took that for granted. I didn't have that feeling, God, for 10 years almost, it felt like. And I'm just so grateful that I found where I am now. And I'm so happy and blessed that I'm still alive. I mean, when you almost die, man, like it's crazy, like what that does. Like that's no joke. Like, when
That's
you
no
go through
joke.
trauma like that, you wake up and you're like, I can't believe I'm alive. Like I honestly thought I did. I said goodbye to my family, and like as I did. I said goodbye to my dad. I said goodbye to my mother. I mean, my wife. I said my last remarks, or whatever you want to call them. But and then to wake up and I'm this. What do you do with your life when you get a second chance? You do something like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it a neat experience to start finding joy and stuff that fills your heart?
Yeah. And isn't it so sad when people forget about it? Yeah.
Right? Like, well, you probably relate to this, but I remember always wanting to be able to talk about stuff, life
Yeah.
problems, and never really having a place to do it, never understanding what even that looked like.
Yeah.
And then you look at how society's built and how disconnected we are as people, and how you have all of this social media and stuff that exists, and most of it's just made up.
Yeah, a lot of it is, I feel like, almost in place to distract you from living. A lot of it is just clickbait stuff, all that stuff. It's not good. Honestly, there's been so many studies that have been done about how detrimental that can be to your mental health in so many ways. You're seeing it with the younger generations who grew up with technology in their hands. Really, it's really sad that, but at the same time, there is a way to fix it. You just focus on, like, my feed now is just
Yeah.
people overcoming incredible adversity in their lives. And by watching those stories, I get that jolt of enthusiasm and appreciation for what they've done. And I take that with me throughout the next day or week or whatever, however hard it hit me that day or whatever. I use that as fuel, as like, okay, like they're doing it, I'm going to do it too. And here I am doing it. And then that momentum. I always talk about this, but the
Yep.
momentum, it's huge. It's like one of the biggest components of keeping me on this journey that I'm going on.
You find what inspires you, right?
Inspiration.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I could talk to you forever, and you know what? Maybe we'll do another one and keep going.
I'm game. This
Okay.
was great. It was
This was great.
awesome. It was awesome to talk
Yeah,
to
I've
you.
never felt more just relaxed than having a conversation about something so serious, but also so beautiful at the same time.
Well,
So, yeah.
When you find another man with a soft heart.
Yeah.
And I say this because there's a lot of bravado that goes around too. And when you find another man with a soft heart, that doesn't feel like the bravado is necessary, and that's you.
No, thanks. Thank you. It's very kind of you.
It there's a genuineness to it that I always really enjoy being a part of. And it's the genuine people that put their heart out, because you wear your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the type of guy you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes to a fault, but yes, I do.
And that's something I've told myself that I don't want to change.
Mm-hmm.
Before we finish this, I'm going to tell you a story about
Please.
this old man that I met in a hospital.
Okay, let's hear it.
My great aunt was passing away in the hospital not too long ago, last year. Her boyfriend was also in the hospital. They were both living in this assisted living place.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, he was in the hospital too. He didn't know that he was on his deathbed. He didn't know that he had terminal brain cancer. Had no idea at the time. My great aunt passed away. I was bringing her dog to the hospital so she could get a chance to spend some time with her dog. And I knew he was in the hospital, so I brought the dog over to him. And he was in his mid 80s. And he's sitting in the hospital. And I mean, he was super thankful that I stopped by, but the guy didn't know me from a hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he got really emotional. And he goes, when you get my age, you lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
In that conversation, I saw an old guy that even though he's lost a lot of people, he decided that it was worth the courage to still love. He was okay with being hurt regardless because he saw the value in that human connection.
Mm-hmm.
He saw the value in loving and losing anyway,
Yeah.
even if it hurt. He taught me a lesson to love anyway,
Yeah.
to not be afraid of the pain that love might give you because it's worth it anyways.
It's always worth it.
And so he showed me that courage.
That's beautiful, Steve. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's a great way to end the episode. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for watching. I know there were a few technical difficulties in the middle, but maybe you didn't catch it. And I was good at editing. We'll see. But anyways, thank you again, Steve, for coming on. This was truly a blessing. I'm so glad that we had the chance to sit down and have an honest conversation about a very serious topic. But it doesn't always have to be serious. You know, it can be lighthearted. It can be down to earth, like it just did. And well, I hope we just did. And I'm very excited to jump on your podcast too and have that little roundtable format because I haven't done that yet. I'm excited to do that. Thank you again for everybody that made it this long through the podcast. I'm really happy that you're here and be on the lookout for many, many more. Before you jump off, where can people find you?
You can find me I'm on Instagram as The Recovered Alcoholic. I'm on TikTok as The Recovered Alcoholic. You can find me at throughtheglassrecovery.com. We also host a recovery meeting. It's an all recovery meeting. You could be part of any recovery path every Monday night at 8:30 p.m. on Eastern on Zoom. It is literally, if you go and listen to the podcast, which is called Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, if you go and listen to it, the meeting is like the podcast. We wanted to give the gift of that meeting in a podcast form to everyone else. And so if that's something you connect with, we go into little breakout rooms of 4 or 5 people just like that, and then give everybody an opportunity to have a conversation. So that's where you can find me. I'm also on Facebook, Steve Knapp. But I want to say thank you, Will. This has been an absolute pleasure to get to meet you and have a really cool, honest conversation. I'm looking forward to you joining us and having another cool conversation and maybe continuing this little friendship that we got going on here. So it's awesome. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you. I really, that's really kind of you. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for to jump on yours. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed it and be on the lookout for many, many more.
Right on.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.